Shalom from Israel. I'm on a bicycle ride with Dini and Yosef and Yehuda Tzvi through a beautiful nature preserve in the Hulah Valley. And this nature preserve was developed and sustained through donations of Jews around the world to Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, the National Jewish National Fund. In this week's Torah portion, we read about 2.5 tribes who approached Moshe Rabbeinu as they were about to cross the Jordan River. The tribes were Gad and Reuven and half of the tribe of Levi. And they say to Moshe Rabbeinu, you know, we have a lot of cattle. It's better for our flock to remain here on the east bank of the Jordan. And Moshe Rabbeinu says to these tribes, how can you do this? You will weaken the spirit, the resolve, the morale of the Jewish people by saying that you're not willing to cross over into the land of Israel, that you want to settle in the diaspora on the east bank of the Jordan. Are you going to repeat the mistake of the 12 spies who did not want to enter the land of Israel? And they say to Moshe Rabbeinu, no, we have no intention of weakening the resolve and the morale of the Jews. We're willing to go over into the land of Israel, unlike the 12 spies. We're willing to fight and conquer the land. But after everyone is settled in the land of Israel, we will come back to the east bank of the Jordan and take our lot and our portion outside of Israel. And one of the interpretations of this remarkable story is that what they were doing was linking the Jews in Israel with the Jews of the diaspora for all of eternity, to show that there's a bond, there's a connection, there's a loyalty and a fidelity. A matter of fact, this country, Israel, was founded after the Holocaust, and it was a promise that we made to our ancestors, and we said never again. It was a promise to the past and to the future, that we will make sure we go back to our ancestral land, and we will be the ones to have sovereignty over our own destiny and our future as a Jewish nation. Matter of fact, every soldier, when they enlist in the IDF, when they complete the course, when they get their gun and their Torah, they take a vow and they say, Ani nishba, Ani nishba, Ani nishba. I swear, I promise, I take an oath to protect my brethren in Israel and around the world. And indeed, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu says to these 2.5 tribes. If you swear, if you promise, if you take a vow that you will fight shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the Jewish nation, then I will allow you to settle in the diaspora. Today is the last day of our trip. Tomorrow morning we head back to Palm Beach for Shabbat. And to leave this beautiful country after 2 weeks of touring is difficult. You fall in love with this country. But you go home with the message that Jews have to stand together. Wherever Jews may find themselves around the world, there are those who are blessed to live in Israel. There are those who, for whatever reason, find themselves in other parts of the world, including Palm Beach. But the goal is to bring a little bit of Israel to Palm Beach and to make sure that the Jewish community in Palm Beach and around the world is felt in Israel, not just through our visits, which is critical and vital, but through our investments, through our development, through our generosity. You know, one of the greatest projects ever created in modern times was Birthright Israel, which has brought hundreds of thousands of young Jewish boys and girls to Israel, fostering a connection and development between Jews in Israel and around the world. And there were many founders, including Charles Bronfman, who was in our synagogue this year to speak about it, but also Sheldon Adelson. And he tells the story about JNF, the park that we're in now that was developed by JNF, that his father was an immigrant from Czechoslovakia, and he would watch his father every day come home from driving his taxi, and the first thing he would do was go over to the JNF box and stuff bills and coins into the box. And little Sheldon said he looked at his father and he thought to himself, we're so poor we could barely put food on the table, why are you giving away your money? And he once questioned his father, and his father said to Sheldon, he said, no matter what you have, there are always those who are less fortunate than you. We have to give charity. Well, he said his father died never meriting to go to the land of Israel. But when he became the multi-billionaire he became, he devoted his life to developing Israel. And he said that I learned that from my father. And he said, after my father died, after 67, I got to go for the first time on my own trip to the land of Israel. And he said, my father never merited to go to Israel, so I put on his shoes. We share the same shoe size. And I boarded an El Al flight, came to Israel, and traveled the breadth and the width of the land, the length and the breadth of the land, walking in my father's shoes, bringing his spirit to the land of Israel. And he said, after that I decided that no Jew should ever be denied the opportunity to experience the land of Israel, and therefore I helped found Birthright, so every Jew should claim their birthright, which is here in the land of Israel. And so, as we prepare to leave Israel, taking in the magnificence of the Hulah Valley and the nature reserve, and we remember the Torah portion, the message I come home to Palm Beach with is, yes, we may find ourselves in the diaspora, but we must always show our loyalty, our fidelity to the morale, to the spirit, to the destiny and the future of this beautiful nation living here in the land of Israel.